Welcome to Growtality, the podcast. Today's episode is super, super exciting. It is an honor and a privilege to welcome Dr. Victoria Grinman, PhD, LCSW, the founder of Growing Kind Minds. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carrie, for having me. This is exciting.
Yes, you have so many wonderful stories, so many wonderful experiences as a therapist, as a transformation agent. I absolutely loved, I read one of the articles, it labeled you as the secret weapon to relationships, kind of like the Spanx for relationships.
Exactly.
But you're so dedicated to your work, and it's just really such a privilege. So, you know, I would love to learn just a little bit about why you do what you do so the audience can get to know you as well.
What a great question, Carrie. So there's, the why behind what we do is so important, especially with this kind of work. And I guess there are two different reasons. One is I absolutely love people. I may love dogs a little bit more than people, but I love people. I love my dog, but people are just exquisitely interesting to me. Human beings, the inner workings of the human mind. So that's one reason, right? And I love helping people. And then the other reason that's really the reason is you talked about relationships, and I've been blessed with just amazing relationships in my life. And we all know that nobody has perfect relationships in their life. And so, with my childhood and growing up, I, had a great relationship with my mom and my dad. And there were times where I wondered, why my mom and dad or my grandparents or adults that I looked up to were certain ways. And it really impacted my relationship with them. And I think as I grew older and I became more dedicated to working with people, I thought if I can just help others understand themselves better and understand why they do what they do and why they feel how they feel, then I can help them have better relationships with the people in their life and their children. And then later on in my life, Carrie, it became part of how do I stop generational trauma from happening? How do I support people in really having relationships that matter to them? And it all starts with us. So that's why relationships are so important, is I think that if we heal the relationship with ourselves and in our own past, we can really support our relationships with other people. So that is the big why behind what I do.
I love that. And, we've talked offline, and, even from a parenting perspective, having three boys, two in college, one in high school, there's this element to how we show up as a parent. And I know you've done tons of work with trauma, but you've also helped just parents with the parent whisperer that you are and teens. And that translates into corporate as well, because there's so many relationships. And if you have these techniques and these tools that you can utilize to help support the relationship and really build a solid foundation, you have more fulfillment in your day, which obviously we have that shared passion for growth and fulfillment. And, planting the right seeds that, and then fertilizing them. I know we had that conversation.
Yeah.
I'd love to just know about the name for your practice, the Growing Kind Minds.
Yeah. So
Did it
it came
come to
about,
you one
what
day?
was that?
Did it just come to you one day?
Yeah. So I think I shared this. Growing Kind Minds came from this idea. I was working a ton with families and children, and I had a lot of people always say to me, well, why can't this just happen right now? Just like fix them. And I would often find myself sharing, just like educating people that we plant seeds, especially with kids. We plant seeds and things grow over time if we do it consistently. And that's really the practice and the commitment and consistency that's important. And so the whole idea behind growing kind minds is that we're not just, manufacturing kindness or manufacturing relationships. We're really growing, we're planting, we're nurturing, we're watering, we're looking why are the roots rotting? What do I do differently? How do, it just really growing to where we want to be. So that's where Growing Kind Minds came from. One of my favorite quotes, Carrie, is, what is it? We plant seeds under trees in which we don't expect to sit, right, later on. So we don't always see the fruits of our labor, but it does make a difference.
That's amazing. It's so true. So I'd love to dig into a little bit. You and I talked about the art of the struggle and dealing with so many world pressures right now and multiple pandemics, right? And having this element of resiliency. I have not had a day in the last 2 or 3 weeks that someone didn't mention helping people with the skill of being more resilient. And, so I'd love to offer, some strategies or tips or try to leverage, the art of the struggle with how to be more resilient. Any suggestions, strategies? What's coming up for you with your practice and all your research? I know you're such a fabulous researcher. So what advice do you have?
What a great question, Carrie. So just to be clear, there's a huge distinction, even though they're under the same umbrella, between resilience and growth, in the way that we talk about it with post-traumatic growth. And both are super important, right? Resilience is the ability to cope and bounce back. The growth or benefit finding that people experience not because of a trauma. So it's not because of the pandemic or because of the health condition or the cancer or the rape or the genocide or whatever it is that's happened that's terrible, but because of the struggle through which someone goes through. And there's a lot of metaphors, like no mud, no lotus, right? Trust your journey, right? Like, you got to struggle and feel that stress and tension before you can feel that growth, right? Diamonds are made under pressure. So the stress and growth coexist together. And so the art, when we talked about this, the art of struggling for me is so important, because a lot of us suffer through things when they happen, and not all of us know how to struggle. So your question about tips, a lot of it for me is about how we frame it in our minds, what kind of thoughts and what kinds of narratives we have around what's happened to us. So one of the main things that I like to explore with people when it comes to either resiliency or growth is, first, really verbalizing, what are you making this mean? What are you making this mean about you? And what are you making this mean about life? What are you making this mean about your abilities or about your children? Whatever it is, right? We're talking generally. And we start from there.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I feel like there's this level of overload, burnout, like just depletion. And I love how you shared, some of it's not necessarily the pandemic itself, but the meaning. And, I would love to know, like, when someone's in that spiral, because this week I've had a lot of conversations where I say, busy is a decision, or choices are made. So you have to, like, if you want to be in that frantic state, you're going to find it, but you have to choose to make better decisions or, say no to certain things. But when you're in that state of depletion, anything that helps people with bouncing back. So I start adding meaning to it. Maybe I'm disorganized, for example. How do you help people get out of their own way when they add the meaning?
About what it means to be disorganized.
Yes.
Now I'm disorganized, and that means I'm a failure. And so that means that, like, why even try? Yeah.
We're going to get
Well,
caught up. The company's disorganized. There's not enough resources. Like, you're starting to, I always joke, like, don't, not joke, I shouldn't say that, but I always say, like, choose which role you want to play in the movie. The
ah,
victim, the villain, the hero, or the wise sage. But how do I get out of my own way when I am in that narrative?
yeah, that's a really great question. So I think that being really present, I think, and present means something different for different people. Carrie, there are times where I wake up, and if you tell me to sit still and close my eyes and think of nothing, I want to, like, hit you, with a broomstick, like, get out of my way. I can't do that today. Right. So what I mean by present, I don't mean present like, be in ohm all day, but present as in what's actually going on right now versus what is the thing that's going on in your head that probably comes up quite often. And I think that if people are able to recognize what their own thing is, right? Like we all have a thing that we do when we get stressed out or we start to think that thing. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But beginning to recognize it and then the distinction between like the present moment. Like, am I okay in this moment? Like, I
Mhm.
know this is going on in my head and I can start thinking about the, future possibility of what could possibly happen that's catastrophic.
Mhm.
But what's going on right now? And becoming present to that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good element. And I always, try to do the mental contrasting of like what's in my control, what's not in my control. What do I know, what don't I know? So try to go in that direction. So you talked about when you wake up in the morning, and someone told me this one time: when you first wake up, always smile. Even if it's forced and fake. And I always try to smile. I try to think of things that I'm grateful for. And some days it's not perfect. It's messy. I jump out of bed because the alarm goes off, and or this morning there's a school call that says it's virtual learning because more snow in New Jersey. I'd
Yeah.
love to learn a little bit about what you do in your day.
To get myself ready to just prime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to prime, to build that like rigor around being, on your A game all day or whatever, having that muscle around a good solid foundation for the day.
Yeah, that's a really great question too, Carrie. So my partner actually, he gets up at 4 in the morning the last few weeks and runs and has a very, very strict schedule. I do not, right? So I just want to frame this with there's no right or wrong and there's no one way to do it. But I think to your point, it's really important to have something for you. So for me, I know that I need a certain amount of sleep. So I need at least 8.5 hours of sleep in order to feel really, really rested. That's just me. Other people are like not that way. So my morning actually begins the night before. And
Mm.
so the night before, planning for what is the next day going to look like. And so the morning begins the night before. And so I look at my schedule, what appointments I have. I have a private practice and all a crazy schedule. So I need to really look, where do I have to be physically? Am I going to be home? Who's caring for the dog? And just really mentally prepare myself. And then I lay out whatever it is that I need. And before bed, I'll do something like either read or meditate. I have an app that I use, Insight Timer, and there's this one. It's a yoga nidra meditation. It's a 22-minute one, but past 3 minutes, I'm done. I'm in la la land. I don't even know what kinds of stuff they're putting in my head, subconsciously and subliminally, but it just really does do it for me. And then in the morning when I wake up, just having that time to myself and communicating that to my partner or just knowing that I don't take calls. I have my coffee, I have a bowl of oatmeal or cereal, I take a shower, I do my makeup, I take my time and I make sure that nothing is rushed.
Mm.
So that for me is important. And I meditate. I also have a journal practice, and the journaling I know not everyone loves. For me, it's just something that I do to either reflect or to write down what I'm grateful for. A gratitude practice is one of mine. And I make sure to have, and I don't know if you do this, movement breaks throughout the day. So whether I take myself out for a walk with the dog or I'm on the rebounder, I bought myself a rebounder, a little trampoline, or just squats or stretches, or I do yoga, right? To make sure that there are movement breaks throughout the day where I'm waking up my body, I'm getting it out of this seated position. And then lastly, what I do is I make sure to talk to one person I haven't spoken with that week that is close to me. I find that sometimes when I'm so stressed out, Carrie, the people that I put off to the side are the ones that are most important to me because I have this narrative that I just don't have the energy to like really give them the conversation they deserve. So I'll just call them another day.
Mm.
And so now I really make it a practice that no, I'll just say, I'm not at my 100% today, but I really wanted to touch base because I miss you. I wanted to catch up. So I do that at least once a day. And that's really the basics of what I do to keep up, keep motivated, be in peak state.
That's great. I love the peak state. And the fact that you have that don't rush yourself mantra. I love the fact that you're reaching out to people because right now with connection, some people may not see anyone. Although we are on WebExers or Zoom calls, we could go for days and some of that's very transactional because it's operationally or but to have that cultural piece in your relationships, even if it is colleagues that you used to see that you don't see anymore, there's still that reach out and make that phone call. So that by intention and design, I think is really critical. I'd love to know a little bit more about an um, emotional regulation. So just because like I can go from 0 to 100, and if I'm hungry, I could go to 0 to 200 pretty quickly. And things are tense and there is pressure and we're back to back to back. Any strategies to try to, in the moment, manage your emotions and not get super, we call it the amygdala hijack, right? Where
Yep.
we're
Yep.
pumping.
Yeah, you got it. The amygdala does get hijacked, and we can't do anything when the amygdala is having a party in our brain. Yeah, this is going to sound super, super, super common sense, but common sense is not always common practice. And what I'm going to say is breathe. Our breath. Our breath is our anchor. You mentioned the amygdala, and one of the things that I love doing is just educating people a little bit about the brain, because our breath actually, when we breathe in through our nose, Carrie, and then breathe out, the important piece is breathing in through the nose. It actually nurtures our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of our autonomic nervous system that's all responsible for feeling calm and collected and cool. And if we are not breathing, right, we're holding our breath or we're not being aware of our breath, it actually does create a dysregulation and it doesn't aid in regulation. So the first and foremost is just your breath is your anchor.
Love that. Thank
Yeah.
you. And any resources, any go-tos on your bookshelf that you just think we should all put on ours?
Oh, yeah. Well, pertaining to what
Maybe it's
exactly?
part of the struggle, just like where we are with resiliency, with struggle.
Yeah. That's a tough one. There's just so many. I have been reading Positive Intelligence. Um, I read a lot. There's Dispenza books. So, if anyone's into Dispenza and really, looking into rewiring yourself, right? And he's incredible. I love, just one thing. It's an older book by Rick Hansen. Rick Hansen is a neuropsychologist who's really incredible in the world of neurology and the brain, but he wrote Just One Thing in the Buddha Brain. And he really talks about doing just one thing a day. And so I'll sometimes grab that. Um, oh my gosh, there's so many.
Those are great starters. And Dr. Joe Dispenza, I love. I have worked with people on presenting and coaching them through virtual delivery and video. And one thing that I talk about is your brain, your subconscious doesn't know the difference between like watching yourself go through a successful mental rehearsal and actually, like so using the technique of visualization and really seeing yourself step by step by step on how you would show up and what it would look like. Clearly you have to do the preparation and know your materials and there's other elements to it. But I find that really helps when you ground yourself into visualization, wiring your brain, subconscious. And I think Dr. Joe Dispenza's materials are amazing. So that was a great resource. And how do we best connect with you as listeners? I think you have so many wonderful strategies, and you and I talked about this, but I coach people, and my goal is to market people and help brand them within their companies, within their leadership, and their life. And so my background is not in the doctor. There's no doctor before my first name, and I'm not a therapist, and you are, and you serve so many. And sometimes it's more than what I could support as a coach. So I'd love to have a resource and how they can connect with you if they feel like they'd like additional support.
Absolutely. You can connect with me just through my website. It's very, very easy. It's growingkindminds.com. You can also email me directly at victoria.growingkindminds@gmail.com. And, I'm all over Instagram and Facebook, and I have a parent group. It's a private parent group. It's free, and I would love to build that community. And it's called Confident Parents Raising Connected Kids. And I would like to share, if it's okay, just one thing to people out there who are thinking, do I need some support or not? We talked a little bit about the corporate realm, and I just know that there's so many people out there right now that are working so, so hard and are incredibly smart. They're incredibly proficient in so many different things and juggling. They juggle, right? They may not juggle balls, but they're juggling a million other different things. And then the pandemic has, happened. And now we're at home and we're juggling things we never thought we would have to. And our personalities, the things that are our strengths, have now become our almost thorns in our side. The perfectionism, the need to fulfill every single task perfectly, the need to be everything to everyone. The workplace just requires so much of us. And so one of my biggest passions is to support people who just have these blind spots now that they never thought that they would have, and really supporting them with very tangible, concrete ways of getting out of their own way and really utilizing what they have and becoming, because they're resourced, more resourceful. So it's a big passion of mine. And so if there's anyone out there that is in need of that, please reach out. It is possible to get support there that is quick and also really effective.
Amazing. I love common sense is not always common practice. That was
Yeah.
that you shared that. So, Dr. Victoria Grinman, thank you so, so much. We really appreciate your time, your recommendations, your resources, but just your beautiful soul. I mean, I can see you, but for those that can't, you have a light that shines so bright. So, thank you for sharing.
Oh, Carrie, thank you so much. I really felt that acknowledgement. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.